I am from a military family. My husband, John, in the back here with the blue, was a member of the Air Force, the Air Reserves at Grissom, and then retired from the Air National Guard base in Fort Wayne, and our son is in the Air Force. So I definitely support the military. I didn't grow up with a military background, so anything that's in the book, they have taught me and been very patient with me as I've interviewed them. I just got started interviewing World War II vets because I do a weekly column for the Ossian Sunriser. Is anybody here? Is anybody from that area? Okay, I do a weekly column, so I have to just kind of keep my ears open for somebody who's interesting. And I actually like to say that I think everybody has a story, and we just have to maybe do a little questioning and find out what that story is. So as I was interviewing World War II veterans, I kept thinking, my gosh, this is amazing and so interesting. And I barely knew what years we were in or where we even served, so it was pretty sad when I first started. But they were, as I said, very patient with me. And so after I had interviewed a few dozen, people were asking me if I was going to put them in a book. I have never self-published. Some of you might know I have published some children's books with traditional publishers, which means I wrote the book, sent it to them, and then I was done. And that was fine with me because I don't like making big decisions like titles and designs and covers and things like that. But so many people had asked me to do that, that I made that decision and commitment to do that just last year. And I wanted to say that I was highly encouraged by Ed Schwartz, who lives here in Bluffton. He is formerly the pastor of the Apostolic Christian Church. He now runs, oh gosh, Loving Shepherd Ministries, correct? I'm sorry, I just went right on my head. He also, when he is home and not in Haiti or even Africa, he runs a book publishing company. At the time last year, it was called Oak Creek Publishing. This year, he had changed it to Oak Creek Media. And I highly recommend him if you have any interest in publishing a book. He is the best to work with. He was very patient with me. I was working at the middle school in the library at the time and writing other things. And so sometimes I just couldn't be really prompt, but he gave me a chance to prove myself, and I think it came out pretty well. There are 28 stories in the book. It's called World War II Legacies, Stories of Northeast Indiana. And by the way, his son Rick took this picture. It's somewhere here in Wells County, this flag. But I wanted to have a flag on the front because not only do I believe in our country and our flag and everything it stands for, I felt like it would be the one symbol that could be used to encompass all of the branches of the military. I didn't want to show favoritism in any way, but I just wanted to show that I support all of them. So let me go ahead and introduce the ones who are here tonight. I was just waiting a couple minutes. Maybe Irv Mosier might slide in here yet. We've got Ed Getz here from Ossian. Probably some of you know Ed. He knows our library here pretty well. He was in the Army Air Corps, and I'm going to give them some chances to tell their stories, so I'm not going to say much more than that at this point. Don Shady was also in the Army Air Corps and brought a C-47. Oh, I got it. C-47. I can't really tell by looking at it what that is, but they know this inside and out. Carl Maggie, right here, is the third one from Craigville. He was in the Marines, and I have to say, out of the 75 vets or so that I've interviewed at this point, he's still my only Marine. So, he's pretty special for that reason. They're all special. And then Homer Bates is right here on the end. He was also in the Army Air Corps. Now, this was not planned in any way, just because my husband and son are in the Air Force. We have 3 here from the Army Air Corps tonight, which was the precursor to our current Air Force. It was actually considered a branch of the Army. And so, but these guys all wanted to fly, so they got into the Air Force. And so then Irv would be our lone Army if he's going to be able to be here. So I just wanted to have an opportunity for all of you to hear their stories. They might not be able to tell every detail. We will try to give everybody an equal chance to talk here and maybe give some of you a chance to ask some questions. Like I said, I'm just going to be kind of the mediator here. But Ed, could I have you go first tonight? What, is that right? Don't sleep on me here. And what motivated you to be in the military?
Well, I was a student at the University of Cincinnati in the engineering program, which is a 5-year program, including co-oping. We had 7 weeks in school, then we'd have 7 weeks in industry, then back to school, and then back to industry. So we were getting some industrial experience along with our education. When the war broke out, I have to say I was studying one Sunday afternoon in my usual listening to big band remote broadcast. It was actually from Frank Daly's Meadowbrook on the Pompton Turnpike in New Jersey. If you've ever been there, it's still there. I don't know where the Frank Daly's Meadowbrook is, but the Pompton Turnpike is still there. Of course, they interrupted the program. No, you can't study without having some music on, and big band music was easy to listen to and easy to study to. They broke in, of course, and said that Pearl Harbor had been attacked. Well, I was a sophomore at that time. Eventually I had my draft number, and after 3 years of the 5-year program, I decided rather than being drafted, I'd select the courses, the service I wanted to go into. And I enlisted in the Air Corps. And I had just started my 4th year when I was called to active duty in March of 1943. It took me a year to get through basic training and more technical training, and finally B-29 flight engineer. The B-29 was the biggest airplane in production at that time. Hap Arnold, General of the Air Force, wanted a plane that could fly long distance, carry a heavy bomb load. He went to Boeing, and Boeing designed the plane, and it was the biggest plane ever put into production. And before the first one flew, Arnold ordered over 1,000 of them. Eventually, over 1,000 B-29s were built. As I said, I went on active duty in 43, and in 1944, in the spring of 44, I was actually in B-29s in training with combat crew training in Salina, Kansas. My story overseas, the biggest thing that happened to me, is in this book. You want to buy a copy of this book, right? Everybody wants to buy one, right?
I wasn't making that a prerequisite.
Oh, you got them for sale? Okay. They're how much?
$20.
$20. Anyway, on page 16 is my story here. And just briefly, we had an engine failure. The engine caught fire. We had to parachute out. We had been on our way to a bombing mission of Japan when that happened. And we had to drop all of our bombs into the ocean. Called it salvo, the bombs. Drop them out. We didn't want them in. Perhaps we could get back to Saipan. Perhaps we'd have to ditch, which is landing on the water. We didn't know which would happen to us. Eventually, fire broke out, and we bailed out. We had to parachute out. Our navigator had led us to an island, not directly back to Saipan, our base, but to an island where we could be identified a location so that they could come and look for us there. So here, 12 of us on board the plane, bailed out, parachuted out of the plane. 3:30 in the morning, at 3,000 feet of altitude. Came into the Black Pacific Ocean. And just thinking about it, it felt like I jumped off of a 20-foot diving board when I hit the water. course, I had lost my glasses as soon as I got into the windstream, but that didn't matter. I was in the water. I tried to inflate my life raft, a one-man life raft that I was sitting on, but it was attached to my parachute, and the parachute shroud line started wrapping around my ankles and pulling me under. I swam away from it all. I had a Mae West, which I inflated, and that supported me and held me up for 8 hours that I was in the water. How far do you want me to go? Right. The story is in the book.
He survived, so he did very well.
I have 4 daughters, and they say, "Dad, we're sure glad you came home, or else we don't know who we would be."
Mine too. All right, and this is Don Shady. Don was also in the Army Air Corps. He has brought the C-47. That was part of what you flew also, and I will let you tell them a little more about that.
Well, this is an offshoot of the DC-3, Delta's DC-3, which was an airline, an early airline. That's what they flew for, an airline, the plane. And some of the first ones that we trained in still had some of the equipment for the civilians in there. A clutch chair and a table and
There you go.
okay.
Thank you.
Some of the planes still had some of the furniture in it that they used as an airline, but it had 2 engines, 1,250 horse apiece. Well, I won't go into the
Not too many details.
No. Haven't got that much time, have we?
Did you tell how many was in your flight crew?
We had a navigator, a radio operator, an engineer, and 2 pilots. No guns. We didn't have a tail gun or waist gun or anything like that.
You were a pilot.
I was a pilot. Well, I was a co-pilot first. We were on one big mission over there, which was Market Garden, where we went into Holland, which was a failure. We didn't accomplish too much, but we lost a lot of airplanes, a lot of people. Then I was with the supply mission at Bastogne. You remember on Christmas Day and the day after Bastogne, and it was the first good flying weather we had. Before that, the Germans had picked out a period of time when the weather was unflyable, which was pretty smart of them and pretty unlucky for us. So we dropped them clothes and shoes and food and let them survive until Patton came from the south and pushed the Germans out with these tanks. Speaking of tanks, we also, a lot of part of our mission was they would lay down metal matting in a pasture field somewhere there in Germany, and we would fly in with a load of Jericho gas cans, have the whole plane loaded with gas cans, 5-gallon gas cans. If someone would have shot at us then, it would have been not so good. And we would land and unload those gas cans, and Patton was coming up with his tanks, and that's the way he was supplied with gas through his plumage through Germany, his rush. We also flew, when the war was over, we flew liberated POWs, most of them Polish, back to Poland to reconstitute them with their families and things. And they were very, very happy about that. You kind of hated to do it because they were dirty, they were lousy. After every flight you had to delouse the plane and clean it up, but it was really worth it to see those guys get home again.
You said you had a close call when you were flying. You were dropping paratroopers. So you had to fly low and slow, which made you a great target. and talk about all the holes that you had.
It didn't show up until we got back home, and the gas was just running out the wings and the fuel tanks, and someone would have lit a match, it would have gone up in a hurry. And we were unaware of that because it seems like though the slipstream must have kept that liquid, that gas in the tank until we slowed down and got on the ground again. But like I say, that market garden we lost an awful lot of planes, a lot of people, and I don't know just how much good we did. But by and large, I think we contributed to the war, and just the Bastogne business was a big one that I think we helped turn the tide there.
And you had an instance where you felt like a bullet had come close to one of your ears?
Oh, during the market garden thing, on the way back, I was talking to my crew members and things, and we all had earphones on, and I wasn't hearing much. And I got to looking around, and here a bullet had come through the plane and shot the earphone wire off of my earplug, so I wasn't getting anything through the wire. That's how close it was.
Did you put something under your seat?
Some people did.
Okay.
No,
Well, you didn't do that.
No, I didn't do
So
that.
it could have come up, that's what, I won't even think about that. All right. Okay, next we have Carl Mankey. Oh.
Don's story is in him too.
Yes.
Where did you get this
I'm going to
book?
hire you as my publicist. You're doing good. This is Carl Mankey. He was actually one of the very first veterans I ever interviewed. So that's been probably 3 years ago, I suppose, at this point. Came out to your house, and he's just a quiet, unassuming man, and then he starts telling me these stories, and I'm thinking he was pretty plucky, some of the stuff he did back then. But I'm going to let you tell some of that.
I wouldn't know where to start.
Oh, gosh.
All I can say is, biggest Charlotte's in the book in there.
Oh. Well, so you taught me about a lot of the islands I had never heard of before. Tinian?
Tinian,
Tinian.
yeah.
What was the other one? Gosh.
Saipan.
Yeah, well, Saipan.
That was in the Mariana group.
Okay. And you
Tarawa was the first one. That was in that Gilbert groups.
Yep, I had never heard of any of those. And
I didn't either till then.
Yeah, I can imagine. You grew up in Adams County, is that right? Were you in Adams County? Did you grow up there?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you did.
Half and half.
Oh, half and half.
About
Okay. Well, whichever one you want to choose. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, as a Marine, what was your life like? Okay, let me back up. Why did you want to be a Marine?
Well, I don't know, just a choice, as good as any.
Okay. You had probably heard some stories about what they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't any
Oh,
of those
yeah.
stories scare you at all?
Well,
No? See what I mean? He wasn't scared about anything. So you were going over there to Tinian, and there was a little nest of Japanese, I'm assuming, that were shooting at you?
yeah, that was on Saipan.
Oh, Saipan,
Saipan.
okay. And you wanted to get rid of them?
Well, yeah.
Okay. So what did you do?
Well,
Did you just sit back and twiddle your thumbs?
no, not
No, I'm
really.
pretty sure you didn't.
We got pinned down, and then me and another guy got loose and got up on the flank, and like I said in the book, sort of had grenades,
Okay.
and
Yeah. So you went after them. You didn't just sit back.
well, you didn't really go after them.
Okay. You threw the grenade though.
Yeah.
And you did not
You
give up.
hide yourself as much as you could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but eventually you took out that
Yeah.
nest. Okay. And you did get injured, correct?
Oh yeah, twice.
Okay. Yes, twice.
Saipan, I got hit by shrapnel,
Okay.
and on Terrell, I got hit by shrapnel. On Saipan, I got shot by a rifle sniper.
Okay. So the first time, they sent you to the hospital
Yeah.
to recover.
Yeah.
And then they sent you back.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And then you got injured a second time. And didn't they send you back again?
No, I did.
Oh, you went home
I was in the
again?
field hospital.
Okay, okay, very good. You then, since you were injured, you were awarded 2 Purple Hearts,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, 2 Purple Hearts.
Actually, and his shadow box is right here,
And the Silver Star, Bronze Star.
and the Silver Star, and the Bronze Star.
And the Bronze
Okay,
Star.
those are big deals. He doesn't act like it, but it is, it's a big deal. All of them here have done, I don't ever try to judge or measure or anything like that, but I just feel like we need to recognize our vets when they have done heroic things, as they all have. So then you came home, and you do have family members who are in the military, don't you?
Huh?
Did you have a grandson that was in the
Oh,
military?
yeah. He ended up in the Marine Corps, the same company and
Oh.
battalion and everything that I was in.
So you didn't try to talk him out of it?
No.
Okay, okay. And by the way, is he the one that took you on the honor flight? Was it
No,
him?
no,
Oh, a different one?
no.
Okay. Has everyone here been on the honor flight? Oh, you two haven't? I'm going after you.
You was you not?
Okay, I'll restrain
But
myself.
I've been to the memorial.
But they really
He said that they told him,
They
since he,
invited me, but I'd already seen the World War II memorial. They said, well, you don't qualify.
oh,
I said, can
they,
I go and pay my way? No. Can I go as an escort? No.
okay, well, they've changed
But
that.
my bomb wing reunion was the very next summer, and I got to see the World War II memorial again. So I had the experience, but not the experience of the fellowship
Yes.
of other veterans seeing the memorials.
I will help you get signed up if you still want to go, because they've changed that. They are now encouraging all World War II veterans to go. So if there's anybody else, please consider it.
You want to go, Don?
I wouldn't care.
They give you all kinds of gifts and free meals and everything. It's wonderful.
Oh, yeah, they take good care of you, I'll tell you.
All
I
right.
can't believe it.
Well, let me,
Homer's been on the honor flight.
Homer, yes. Actually, this guy is also plucky. I just did a story on him. Did anybody happen to see what he recently did? He took a big trip to Connecticut with his daughter, and his one daughter is here tonight. Oh gosh, I've totally forgotten. I'm sorry, your name.
He went with Jill,
Jill.
the other one.
Yes, yes. And Sue Harris, who some of you might know, she's also working on a similar type of project. We help each other with names, and she's trying to get a plaque into the courthouse with all of our World War II veterans' names on it. So, but she went with Homer on the honor flight, and then she and his daughter Jill went to Connecticut to a bomber reunion just a couple of weeks ago, which I think is amazing. And then while you were there, he did something really amazing. Now it was kind of crazy actually, but he crawled, you're gonna help me, you crawled through, what was that called again?
A tunnel?
A tunnel in the plane, which I didn't know any plane had a tunnel. What was the plane, I forget.
B-29.
A B-29 tunnel, and how long was the tunnel?
31 feet.
31 feet in the dark, on his hands and knees, and there was nobody ahead of you. You were kind of just in the dark, and because he wanted to. This was on his bucket list. You told me that. I did not make that up.
It was a dream.
Yes? So who would have ever guessed? You never know what you're going
And
to
he's
hear out of these
claustrophobic.
guys when you interview them. So, what's that?
And he's claustrophobic.
Oh, really? You're claustrophobic? A little bit?
Not that day.
Oh. Okay. But he came out and they got a picture of him at the end. If you haven't seen it, you need to see the picture. It's really, really cute. So, Homer, you were also in the Army Air Corps, and you wanted to fly. You wanted to join that particular, you don't always get to be in the branch you want, but sometimes they let you. So these guys were pretty lucky. You want to tell us a little bit about what you've done? Got that? I'll take a seat here.
During 1942, things were going pretty strong over in Europe, and at that time I was employed on a day shift at the General Electric, and we had ample time at the noon hour to walk to a close restaurant and get a bite to eat and get back to work. Several men my age then, it would have been 19 or 20, were in the same restaurant as myself from the GE, and they were having a good time laughing on how they failed a physical. They did something to their bodies, taking something inward that would cause them to fail some of the important tests on their examination to become a soldier. And I didn't like to hear that. So I thought, yes, we're on somebody's books to be available to go to the service, and I volunteered. I thought, I'll just show them that I'm not afraid to take a physical, and I won't take anything in my body to deter my passing. Anyway, after basic training in Miami Beach, Florida in December, you can't beat that, I was sent on then to choices of my choices of schools. There's a battery of tests you take, and if you test well enough, why, you have a 1-2 choice of where you wanted to go. And my choice was to be an aircraft mechanic. So my first school was in North Carolina. After graduating from that, I was on the flight line working on aircraft. After several months of that, it was a move on to Chanute Field. And after that, it was several more months of working on aircraft that was in the inventory of the Army Air Corps. The third school was Lowry Field at Denver, Colorado, and there we got to learn about central fire control on aircraft. And I thought, why have they sent me to so many different schools and I don't care about fighting fires? I was picturing myself with a heavy suit on, with a hose in my hand trying to put out forest fires. That wasn't it at all. That was a central fire control system on the B-29 that Ed was just describing a short time ago. And the B-29s were slowly coming off the assembly line. There weren't very many of them out. And so we were given mock-ups. They knew where our assignment was going to be. So for the different crew members and myself going to be a aerial gunner, why we had a mock-up just like that we were going to get in later on as a B-29 become available to our station in Kansas. Our station in Kansas was one of 4. Ed was at one of them, I was at another one, and there were 2 more. We trained on B-17s, a smaller airplane built by Boeing, because 29s weren't available. They were coming slow off the assembly line, and then after being test flown for all of the different facilities that the B-29 have, some of the things didn't work well. So they went to different stations, different depots to modify that and get them acceptable to take on into combat at a later date. How many of you here were at one of the schoolhouses a month ago? Hold up your hand.
of us were in school.
How many of you were guests at a schoolhouse with the, you were there every night?
I'm not sure.
The Parks Board, the Bluffton Parks Board, for 5 different Monday nights, had a series
In the
of,
mornings. It was
in the morning,
mornings. Part of
okay.
the senior exploration
How many,
class.
how many of you?
It was this spring. Not very many, that's why we're doing this.
Okay, John, okay. Okay, do we have any time left?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Why don't you talk about your job, which was a waste gunner, is that right?
yes,
Can you tell a little bit about what that meant? What
okay,
you did?
okay. As time progressed, we got notice 2 weeks ahead of time, 2.5 weeks ahead of time, get a, what do you call it, get a will made out, call your folks down here to see you at this training base, we'll give you some time off to go home, get everything taken care of, because we don't know how long you'll be overseas with this B-29. We did get to fly it a number of hours, a number of weeks, and a couple of 3 or 4 months before we did take it over. My first overseas stop was Marrakech, North Africa. My second stop was Cairo, Egypt. My third stop for 1 year was in India. That's a long ways from Japan. How did we get to Japan? Okay, we put on the full fuel load, no bombs. We fly over the Himalaya Mountains. We go to an advanced base. That's 1 day of flying. That's 1 day of flying to get over there. No bombs. Okay, after post-flighting the airplane and getting a good night's rest, armament loads us up with bombs and fuel. In the morning, why we are taking on more fuel. We need all the fuel we can get for the hop over to Japan. So we possibly get another 100-gallon put in each wing tank for those 4 engines before leaving. Okay, we're loaded with bombs. Let me back up over the Himalaya Mountains. That was going to be in June of 1944. Greenery is just coming out. All of the trees below. All of the trees below were getting their leaves on, but we could see a lot of shiny, we could see through the foliage to the ground. And we were at 2,000 or 3,000 feet above the tallest of the terrain. But that shiny foil that we were seeing were parts of airplanes that didn't make it. Ahead of us, months and months and years ahead of time, why that was a main path to get from India over to China to an advanced Allied base. Below there were villages of natives. In a village of natives, all of the men wanted to be the mayor. How did they get to be the mayor? After they lost us and we went down, and if we were still alive, they took and beheaded us and put our head on boards on their back fence. The one that could keep the most heads on his back fence could be the mayor until it changed hands. So we didn't want any part of that. We stayed up there and went on to get to our forward base, which was A1. Okay, that was a good day's flight. Okay, the next day we're loaded, we're ready to go. Our flight that day was over to not Japan, but a Japan-held asset, Anshan, Manchuria. And I haven't seen an atlas for months and months, but That is a location in the far eastern part of Russia. And Japan wanted it worse than Russia did, so Japan had military forces over there, including an airfield, some airplanes, and Japan troops over there to man that airfield. Okay, there were other things there that was very important to our leaders. That was our target, something there. Okay, we were back about 2 hours from reaching that point, and something happened to our airplane. I do not know yet whether it was anti-aircraft or a defect in my window. My window is 30 inches in diameter, and we're going to talk about the portion of the window from 9 to 12 o'clock, the fourth quarter of that circle. It was blew out, kaboom. We are pressurized for our comfort. Our inside altitude would be about, Ed would know, somewhere between 8 and 12,000 feet. Outside it was 25,000 feet. As soon as all of our inside pressure got out, it was equalizing, and while it was doing that, we were losing lots of software, lots of little things that we took with us, probably portions of food boxes and just light things. I lost 2 seat cushions. I thought that would cover the hole. It didn't. It took them out kazoo. At the moment this was blown out, yes, it tightened my seat belt up, and it pulled my helmet over with a loud bang against the 3/4 of the window that was left. As I mentioned, we were at 25,000 feet, 2 hours back from our target. We're going on. There was lots of interphone communication. What happened? Who's hurt? Is he bleeding? The front people wanted to know this. The people that I were with were 2 more gunners, a top gunner and a side gunner. The tail gunner was back doing his job some 30, 40, 50 feet back. After everyone knew what was happening, it was rapidly getting colder and colder and colder. We can't control what that air is outside, and with a little arithmetic and knowing that it's 2.5 degrees loss on every 1,000 feet you go up, and we were at 25,000, that makes our outside temperature 62,000 below. It was at 0 when we took off in China. So we weren't feeling good. I was the closest, and I would have been the most coolest of the 11 on board. We dropped our bombs well. The results were well. We know that by an aircraft that went over the target at 29,000 feet 24 hours later. We did our job. We got home. Up front called the control tower. They had a man on board that was a little extra cool. They had we call it a meat wagon. They had an EMS truck at the bottom in the grass along the runway. He was chasing it as we touched down. We turned off at the closest intersection to get out of the way of additional traffic that was coming in. I was loaded in the EMS truck, taken to the dispensary and checked out, and they said you can't fly for a couple of days. Well, that suited me fine. It didn't take that long to warm up, but I wasn't scheduled anyway for that long, because possibly the next day or two that airplane wanted to go again. It had to, I want to go see Japan, and I want to drop more, we all want to drop more hardware on them. We got a lot of hardware here we want to get rid of. So,
let me ask you a couple of things. Is that okay, Homer? I've got to switch arms too. How many missions did you fly?
only 33.
Only 33. Okay. And you were at one time told to fly your plane back to the United States for, you weren't given a reason. Do you know what I'm referring to? Do you mind telling that story?
It's in the book.
Oh, I know, it is in the book. I didn't hire them to say any of this. But I'm going to give him a little treat here tonight, because he met a very special person, but he didn't know how special until the person showed up.
Okay.
Is your hand tired? I'm going to help you hold it there.
Our base in Kansas got a telephone call one day in early February of 1944.
Thank you, that's right, I forgot about that. Let's see if we can just use that. Oh, Emily, I'm so bad. Okay, I'm gonna do that. Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Our boys, base operations got a telephone call in Kansas. The gist of the story was, base, we got a favor of ask of you, and we have an important gentleman that wants to know a little bit more about what you're doing out there. He wants to see your airplane, and he wants to meet your people, the people that fly it and the crew chief, and we want you up here in 5 or 6 days. We'll give you a date and we'll give you a time. And so who can not comply with wanting to fly an airplane up there and show it off to whoever wants to see it? Well, the reason was not given yet, so they told us to put our Class A's in the bag, would take off a certain morning, rode up a day ahead of this important day, and meet somebody important. And we all did this, and we flew up there. The field was short. It was Bowling Air Force Base, Bowling Field. And we're used to lots of runway. That was a runway built for aircraft used during World War I. And so our aircraft pilot, Walter Lucas, aircraft commander Walter Lucas, said, here's what we'll do, Tower. We'll put our landing gear down and buzz the field at your tower height. And if I think I can get her woed at the end, why, we'll do a 180 and come in and land. If I can't, why, we'll fly a little higher and say so long to you guys. Well, he voted, they voted to let us, Walter Lucas said, I'm going to do it. So we touched down in the sand at the leading edge of the runway. We used all the brakes we had. All 11 of us could see the smoke and see the brakes tightening up and holding us from running off of the far end of the runway. As we made a right turn to get off, the outside wheels were over in some sand again, and we went in and parked our airplane and we met by General Arnold. After we deboarded, we had our flight clothes on. He said, stand a certain place today. Tomorrow stand the same place with your flight, with your Class A uniforms on. General Arnold took our names and state where we're from and position on the airplane. He did not write a word down. Okay. Oh, and he said, by the way, those important people that you're going to meet real soon is our president, FDR, and his staff. Then his limousine drove up quite a distance from us.
Well, that's okay. That's all right.
Oh, 500 feet, and he stayed in his limousine. That was the next morning when we were in our Class A's. We were introduced to him and his staff one by one, and he didn't miss a wig. Every one of us come out right. Then, a little bit later on, when we got the message, he was talking to FDR in his limousine seated. Have your crew take their position in the airplane and show us everything that will move except the landing gear. So we took our position in the airplane. One of us started the putt-putt. That's an electric motor that will furnish power to certain items on the airplane, and electricity. We did not start engines. And so we did this, and after we did this, moving the rudder, elevators, wing flaps, everything that would move, ailerons, that was it. But then he had very important individuals come to the airplane and climb up the climb up the front exit. It's a fixed ladder right inside of the left side of the mainland and nose landing gear, and they climbed up and asked questions to each person that they could talk to. After they talked to the line crew, one of them was FDR's daughter. Was it? And
It's in the book.
2 children. One child was 16, the other was 13. After they did this, and the president's daughter was very informed about things she wanted to ask him. Some of the questions I understand were hard to answer. Then they come around and come up our ladder in the back and ask us questions, especially the 16 and the 13-year-old youth.
I'm probably going to have to interrupt you at this point because I wanted to, so you can see that when we're doing the interviews, I can't put everything in the books that I've learned from them because, or in the stories. Sometimes our interviews can go an hour and a half even, and I just listen. I'm taking notes the whole time, and a lot of times, not necessarily with any of these guys, but sometimes they break down because something they've told me is still very painful for them to relay. And I don't necessarily put that in the book either, or in the stories that I write. My goal is to show honor to them as much as possible, and to be as accurate as I can be. That's always my goal. If anything is not accurate, it's always going to be my fault, not them that got it wrong. But I am just very thrilled by these guys and everyone that I've interviewed. I mean, they just really keep me humble. And I often, at this point, I'm saying, sometimes I get, maybe discouraged about something, and I think, hey, my vets wouldn't have given up on this. They would have kept going. And it's really amazing that I've got this, better attitude now from interviewing all of these. And so I thank you all for that kind of thing, which I never even expected as a staff. So now we're going to open it for any questions. I will just take the microphone. If you have a certain veteran that you have a question of, I'll take that and put that in front of them. Does anyone have a question you would like to ask?
We must have done pretty well.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's always something to learn.
Katie?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Got one for any of them.
Okay.
As an answer. A lot of times the war vets coming back have not always come with a lot of fanfare and praise, especially Vietnam, and I know that's happened in other wars too. What was the experience of these guys? Did they come back being praised, or did they run into some? I mean, I know there were people that thought we shouldn't have been in the Second World War, so.
And that surprised me. Because I had always heard that there was just such a united effort, and yet some vets have shared that. Does anyone here want to address that? Anybody here have problems coming back?
I came back by ship from Saipan. I decided rather than flying home, I'd have a sea voyage. I might not have an opportunity again, but for 2 weeks we were on the Pacific Ocean. Coming back from Saipan, we landed at the Los Angeles port. Actually, from there, we went by railroad across the country and wound up in Camp Atterbury, southern Indiana. And I was discharged from there to go back to school. I never had any difficulty whatsoever. Nobody invited me to take part in a parade or sit in a convertible or the Memorial Day parade or anything like that, but I just enjoyed coming back. And I got back just in time to get back into school and start my 4th year again of the 5-year engineering course.
Okay, actually, that would be a good question. What did you do, Don, then, for a career after being in the military?
Well, I came back from Europe, and we had a 30-day leave. And the 30-day leave was up, and I was on a bus headed for Indianapolis to go to the Pacific. So I wasn't looking forward to that too much. And while we were on this bus, the announcement came by that the war was over. And that, we just cried about that, you know. I didn't go to school. I was going to school when I started for pre-med. I had decided I didn't want to do pre-med, and I was interested in chemistry. So I got a job at Central Soil working on the chemist on a bench, and 38 years later, I retired from Central Soil.
Carl, you're next. What did you do then after the war?
Well, come back home and went to work and raised a family.
You had 6 children, is that right?
6, yeah.
Okay.
6, yeah.
Were you a truck driver? Is that right?
No, I worked in maintenance.
Maintenance?
Yeah.
Where at?
Trailer company.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Very good.
you had roads in there, trucker, I heard.
Oh.
And that everybody just naturally thinks if you work at Frugal Trailer Company, you have to drive a truck.
Wow. Thank you for telling me. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I wish
No,
I could go back and fix it.
That's no problem. That's no problem at all.
All right.
That's no problem.
And Homer, what did you do after the war? Not much. You actually stayed in the military, didn't you?
GE took me back, that's on their books. So they took me back, but after a while working there, a farmer, a gentleman that hired me before World War II on a farm after high school, said he just bought a farm, Homer. Said, I'm looking for someone to take over. I'm single. This was 1945. And he said, I need someone to buy some cows and buy some pigs and buy some chickens and do the whole job lot. You got to have some inventory and buy some equipment. So I said, let me think about it a day or two. He came back, and it was a farm just north of Markle in Wells County. So I was there 9 years.
We're at the Air National Guard.
Yeah. During this time, I shouldn't tell this, but one day I was plowing my own corn with a 2-row cultivator, a red tractor called an M. And we were right in the path of a northeast-southwest runway. And by that time, they're climbing pretty good out, both commercial and military aircraft. Once in a while, I'd look up at the airplane, and oh, I'm plowing corn. And pretty soon I was off of the row. And I looked back, and there wasn't any rows there. So I thought, that's enough of that. I sure hope my landlord don't walk this field before I get the corn picker in here. Anyway, that got me to being interested in aircraft. Okay, one rainy day I went up and was interviewed by the people. They told me they'd give me my rank back. They would give me I could be a weekend warrior. I could come up come weekends and go to summer camp with them. I did that for a couple of years. Then a full-time position came up in aircraft maintenance, and I hired on, and after 28 years with them, I reached 60, and they turned me out to pastor.
Now weren't you in Berlin
Yes.
during the
Berlin
Berlin
crisis,
airlift?
yes. 1961, 62, I had 6 children at home
Yes.
with Janice's mother.
Yes. So, how many years of military service did you have?
32.
32. Okay. Anybody else have a question? Okay, well, I just wanted to say thank you for them coming tonight, and you don't know how happy I am that it's not raining, so, because I thought that would be a problem. I just would like to add that I've made it a personal goal to try to interview as many World War II vets as I can while they're still with us, and I'm just saying that very reverently, and I think so much of them, and I wish I could just take my time, but since my book came out, 4 have passed away who were in the book, so I just feel like this is a heritage that is very valuable to us. I mean, if I would have been, when I would have been younger, if I could have interviewed somebody from the Civil War, how cool would that be? And nobody probably even thought about that very much. And yet we've got these guys here, and we need to tap them and make them feel like their stories are great. I've had some guys tell me that because they didn't go overseas, that their stories aren't important, or what they did is not as important as what all of you have done. And I said, my husband didn't serve overseas, and I feel like what he did was important. Everybody played a part, whether they shot a gun or anything like that. I don't measure things like that, but so I'm just looking for more World War II veterans. If you do know of any, I'm even willing to travel a little ways. At this point, the New Sentinel is running a series of additional stories, not the ones from the book, but additional World War II stories. In fact, Mr. Bill Sawyer from Bluffton was in, right here, was in that series that has started in February. It's every other Monday in the New Sentinel, and I didn't ask for this, but they put it on the front page above the fold for most of those. I'm really thrilled with that. This is the 70th anniversary of the end of the war. So I'm just trying to, get people aware of what a resource we have here. And even I have a goal, maybe some of our young soldiers today who are having such a hard time with PTSD, maybe they can get some encouragement from reading some of these stories, because they had some, what they called shell shock back then, and it wasn't addressed at all from what I've heard. So, and yet a lot of them have been very successful and have felt at peace with what they've done, and it wasn't always easy. And I never ask how many people did you kill or anything like that. When I interview, I just let them talk, and it's their story, and we just kind of go from there. And they're very important to me. I value everyone. So they know when I call them, I'm probably going to ask them for something, and so they still take my calls. Okay, if no one else has a question, we'll call it an end to the evening, but if you are interested, there are some books back there. If you would like one, they are $20, and the guys would, I think, be willing to sign them for you, which would be a nice opportunity to make the book even more special. There are 28 stories in there. There are women in there also. I did personally interview them, by the way. These aren't from diaries or anything like that. I went to their homes or where they lived to do that. So, well, I just want to thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. I'm really happy with the good turnout. I just really would like to show honor to these guys and the women who have served, and just let them know they're very important. So thank you.